The story begins when we see a man with a black cape standing on top of the mountain. The man was surrounded by vicious monsters, but despite being outnumbered, he easily decapitated each one of them. The scene shifts where we can see a courier driver peacefully doing his everyday task, but then a group of goblins ambushed him. Luckily, there were people on the scene to help him. Those people are what we call warriors. Their mission was to slay every monster to level up. Fast forward to that, we now get a glimpse of our hero. His name was Fate Graphite. In the middle of his duty as a guard, he saw the same warriors who helped the man to safely arrive at the capital. Our hero's dream was to become a warrior just like them, but that dream would be impossible for him because his skill is not worth enough to do expeditions. As Fate endures his hunger, his superiors come to him to give him his salary. His superiors didn't give his salary properly. They threw the coins onto the ground and asked him to pick it up. Their mockery didn't end there. They physically hurt him, but our hero had no choice but to comply because his abilities were not sufficient enough for him to retaliate. But then another member of the Holy Knight named Roxy Heart came to stop the bullies. So, the bullies left because they didn't want to get involved in a fight against her. At night, Fate was walking alone in a narrow alley. While walking, he was reminiscing on how pathetic he was for not being able to do anything. He then saw a group of thieves jumping out of a tall wall. So, he immediately looked for Roxy to tell her. Before Roxy leaves to search for the thieves, he asks our hero to take over her guard duty for a while. Our hero then encountered one member of the thieves. Fate stood his ground and prevented the thief from escaping the scene. The thief tried to attack Fate, and left with no choice, he defended himself and killed the thief in the process. After killing the man, his gluttony skill got activated and his stats had increased. Roxy asked Fate if he was okay. Fate was about to answer her question, but then he suddenly read what was going on in Roxy's mind. It turns out that our hero gained telepathy ability after killing the thief. Roxy appreciated our hero for not leaving the post, so she offered our hero to work for Heart's family, to which our hero accepted immediately. While shopping for a weapon, our hero noticed an old sword. While checking out the sword suddenly talked to him. Knowing that there was a sword that could talk to him, he did not hesitate to buy it. The sword and Fate did an expedition together. After slaying a bunch of monsters, the sword tells him that the gluttony skill is not something he should reveal to someone because it defies the divine law. In the afternoon, they bumped into a man along with a little girl. Our hero read the girl's mind and the girl asked him for help. So, our hero followed the man to his hideout. Inside the hideout, our hero went toe-to-toe against the abductor. Fate managed to beat the man with one slash, while the abductor lay against the floor. Fate asked him who was the person behind his heinous plan. The man refused to give him an answer at first, but after a little torturing, the man decided to talk. It turns out the man behind everything was Hado Velric, the same knight who used to bully him. Fate brought the little girl, whose name is Sahara, back to the adoption house. Fate felt happy as he watched the nun and Sahara's heartfelt reunion. Before he leaves, Fate tells Sahara that, no matter how hard things get, if you can laugh them off, one day you'll find happiness. Those words were used to say by his late father. Looks like our hero had gained his first technical skill after his previous fight against the abductor. The next day, Fate and Greed the Sword has finally arrived at the Holy Knight district to work for the Heart's family. There, he saw Roxy, who was waiting for him. He was captivated by how gorgeous Roxy was with her white dress. They went to the grave of Roxy's father to tell her late father that Fate would be starting to work at the manor. At the grave, Roxy mentioned that his father died 5 days ago, and it was all because of the divine dragon he met at Galia. Roxy then introduced Fate to Haru, the chief maid for the Heart estate. Haru asked him to be once he started working, he should be in a manner befitting a servant of the Heart family. Hearing that statement made our hero feel pressured. It's been a week since Fate worked for the Heart family. He quickly gained his co-workers' approval, such as Mr. Oliver and Mr. Minerva. While they were talking to each other, Fate's stomach growls despite he just finished eating. Later, Haru told our hero that Roxy was calling for him. While he was talking with Roxy, Fate noticed that it was weird for him to feel more hungry. Fate noticed that Roxy had given him a nickname, which is Faye. Coincidentally, Fate's father used to call him Faye too. Roxy told Fate that the reason she started giving him a nickname was because he was now a member of the Heart family. That statement made him blush, but he felt embarrassed, so he told her to just keep calling him Fate. But Roxy denied it. He then suddenly collapsed. When our hero woke up, it was already late. On the table beside him, there was a letter written by Roxy to take tomorrow off to rest. Feeling agitated, Fate asked Greed why he was experiencing extreme hunger. Greed replied that it was all because of his gluttony skill, that once it gets a taste of soul, there's no stopping it. So, he needs to keep on killing, because once he stops, he will die from extreme hunger, or he will lose control and start attacking anyone in his path. Greed also told him that once his hunger approaches its limit, his eyes would turn red. Immediately, Fate started to hunt some souls to consume. There are some advantages to his hunger though. His hunger would give him a temporary power called Hunger Boost, which will give him night vision, and the ability to track prey by scent, and weaker prey will be terrified and paralyzed. After hunting for a while, his hunger problem is finally solved. But then he encountered the Goblin King. The Goblin King has the self-regeneration ability, so our hero didn't shy away from the opportunity and took the Goblin King down. After taking the Goblin King, Greed tells him that he can finally access Greed's first level. To do that, he needs to hand over all of his gained stats as an offering, and if he refused to do so, Fate would lose the right to wield Greed. Without any hesitation, Fate gave all of his stats to Greed. Greed transformed from a sword to a bow. After his hunt, Fate gave the Goblin King's ear to the orphanage for them to sell. The following morning, our hero saw someone sneaking away from the Heart's Manor. He prevented the person from escaping any further, but it turns out that it was Roxy all along. Roxy told Fate that she was going into town for a secret inspection. Since Fate had already seen her, Roxy thought of a great idea. She assigned him to be her escort in the inspection. At the town, Roxy asks Fate to stop being formal with her for the time being so that the people won't notice her. Rather than calling her Miss Roxy, she ought to be called Lexi instead. Because of that greed, the sword kept on teasing Fate. That made Fate treat Greed roughly, to which Roxy prevented him from treating Greed any rougher. Speaking of his sword, Roxy wanted to look at our hero's sword. After inspecting it for a while, Roxy noticed that Greed could do some maintenance. So, Roxy planned to introduce Fate to their family's swordsmith. Their so-called inspection continued. While they were exploring the town, they noticed that the mood got foul when another holy knight came into the picture. Because the air was getting awkward, Greed joked for some reason. That made Fate shout the words "shut up." That made the holy knight feel pissed toward Fate. Fate knelt to apologize to the holy knight, but the knight found his behavior intolerable. Just when the knight was about to step on him, Roxy prevented the man. As the knight looked at Roxy, he almost caught on that it was Roxy. Left with no choice, they pretended to be a lover to prevent losing their disguise any further. Because of their silly act, they managed to escape the situation. Later on, Fate noticed that Roxy was looking at a beautiful gem. Fate asked if she liked gems. Roxy replied, "Of course, I'm a woman after all." As they kept on exploring, they overheard two men talking about what our hero did to the goblins and the mysterious donation of the Goblin King's ear at the orphanage. That made Roxy feel intrigued, so he asked the men for further information. It turns out that Roxy's secret inspection was for Fate's previous action. Rumor says that the cause of everything was that there was a powerful wandering monster roaming near the town. They went to the same tavern where Fate always was. Along with the bartender and old man Ad, they talked about this so-called wandering monster. Ad notified them that the Holy Knight had now started direct action to deal with the situation. That made them shocked, especially our hero, because if things get worse, he might encounter a situation where he and Roxy would fight. The next day, Greed finally got his long-awaited maintenance. After that, they encounter the Velaric siblings abusing a child. Of course, without any hesitation, Roxy came to step in. When Hado and the others were about to leave, the kid told them how much he hated the Holy Knights. That made Roxy feel apologetic because of the Holy Knight's tarnished reputation. While they help the child to look for his parents, Fate wonders what happened to the Holy Knight who looked after him before. At night, Fate wondered how would he be able to hunt without Roxy catching that it was him. So, the next day Greed told Fate to buy a mask with perception warping ability, to which he did. Meanwhile, looks like a meeting is going on between the Velaric siblings and the other corrupted knights. There, they talked about the excursion to Galia. The following morning, Roxy and our hero went to Hart's family vineyard. There they met Roxy's mother. Roxy's mother wholeheartedly welcomed Fate. Roxy's mother, whose name is Aisha, asked Fate about his opinion of Roxy as his employer, to which Fate replied that it was an honor to serve for her and he planned to serve her for the rest of his life. In Roxy's room, she reminisced about his late father and what his father did for her to be a proud holy knight. After Fate and Roxy finished picking up some grapes, Fate had a conversation with one of the workers. The worker told him that one of the reasons why Roxy kept on visiting the vineyard was not only to pick some grapes, but it was also to hunt to prevent the kobolds from ruining the vineyard. Hearing that there are monsters nearby, his gluttony skill felt hunger once again. In the afternoon, Fate met a girl, to which he was surprised because the girl had the same eyes as him. The girl told him that he could take the kobolds all by himself and that he should just thank him later. Later on, Roxy came into the picture. She told him that the girl was Galian, a powerful race that had great military power before. The next day, Roxy, Fate, and the workers went out to hunt down the kobolds. While they were carefully observing the kobolds, they saw the leader of the pack. Just by looking at them, our hero's mouth started watering, and can't wait to consume them. After observing, the workers told Roxy that there was no way for them to handle the kobolds, especially the leader, but Roxy assured them that she could handle it all by herself. While she was consoling the workers, Greed told our hero that Roxy wouldn't be able to handle the monster all by herself. At night, Fate planned to hunt down the monster and the crowned beast by himself. He managed to kill a lot of kobolds, but he still craved for the leader. After fighting for a while, he can now access one of Greed's hidden art, which will require 10% of his stats, to which he agreed to give it to Greed. Greed then transformed into a big bow. With just one strike, he took down the kobolds and the crowned beast. Then suddenly Fate's body started shaking because of devouring a soul of higher quality for the first time. Fate's objective then was to endure the pain or he might die in the process. The next day, Roxy went out to hunt down the monster, only to see that it was already too late. At the dining hall, Aisha noticed that Roxy makes the most wonderful face when she's around Fate. So, Aisha talked to Fate privately. She wishes for our hero to stay by Roxy's side to support her. Aisha told him that she wouldn't last long with her frail body, and that's why she wanted him to be there for Roxy. To which of course, Fate accepted her offer. Although he accepted it, he still wonders if he was deserving of it. Another night has come, and once again he plans to consume more souls, only to find out that the goblins are not enough to satisfy him anymore. While he was at the tavern, news spread that Hado would be joining the hunt for a corpse. They also talked about the Holy Knight going to Galia for the expedition. So Fate quickly went to the mansion to stop Roxy from joining the expedition. But of course, Roxy refused. Meanwhile, at the castle, the true intention behind the expedition is revealed, and that is to kill Roxy. Our hero won't let that happen, so he snuck away at night to level himself up to protect Roxy. He encountered Hado and his crew there. Hado's crew went in first, but they got easily beaten by Fate. Hado was in fear as he witnessed his minions being slain. Now that he was alone with Hado, Fate decided to reveal himself. In just a single slash, our hero cut Hado's sword in half. Just like what Hado did to him before, he asked him to pick it up. Later on, Fate took his time to enjoy the moment where he would torture Hado, until to the point that there are no limbs left for Hado. Eventually, he killed Hado and gained all of his stats and skills. Now he possessed the ability to get access to Greed's second form. The second form was Great Scythe, a scythe that can cut